Yeah. So, Junior, thank you very much for joining us today. Tell us a little bit about yourself and about Resident Home. I know you guys changed names recently, right? We used to know
Mhm.
you as another brand before.
Yes. So again, my name is Junior Reyes, and I handle a handful of different channels here at Resident, formerly Nectar Sleep. So a little bit about the company. We rebranded to Resident Home um, a couple of about a year and a half ago now, due to the fact that we were growing very rapidly across different brands that offer different products or different areas of the home. So initially, it was Nectar Sleep, which is our core brand, and we saw tremendous success with that brand and scaling it up. So we decided to replicate the same strategy across different mattress brands, and now we carried about four different mattress brands. One of them being Dream Cloud, Awara Sleep, and Level Sleep, as well as other home brands such as 1771, which soon will go through another rebranding. Bundle Living, as well as Clover Lane and Wovenly, which carry other products for the home. But yeah, excited to be here and have a great conversation with you.
Great, great. So now that you guys have all these different brands, how do you look at your media strategy, and how do you mix all the media with the different types of branding? Is there a strategy you guys have chosen to say certain brands go certain places, or how do you guys analyze that and choose your media?
Yeah, so the strategy has been simple. It's just to focus on the core brands and then replicate the success of that core brand across the other brands and see how performance is affected. And then if it's good, essentially continue to scale up. So essentially rinse and repeat. So our core brands are Nectar Sleep and Dream Cloud. And then what I would call essentially our startup or more startup brands would be Awara and the rest of the other brands that I mentioned. So if we find something that works well on Nectar, we'll figure out how to adapt it accordingly for that other brand and run it through our experiment funnel. So that would be, we'll run that experiment for a set number of days and have certain checkpoints within those days during that experiment so that we can then determine if the test was successful. If it is successful, essentially it becomes an always on. Um, if it's a marketing channel, it'll be an always on marketing channel. If it's a sub test on their particular marketing channel, it'll become an always on test or an always on experiment in that particular marketing channel for that particular brand.
So, what are some of the upcoming trends that you see in media? What areas are you guys looking at? Hear a lot about connected TV and esports and things like that. So, what are you guys looking at from a media perspective that's new these days?
Yeah, so I would say connected TV. So we are very big on diversifying our marketing mix across our all of our brands, and particularly our core brands, as we want to make sure that we are not too dependent on just one marketing channel. Like for example, there are brands out there that heavily rely on just paid search and Facebook or paid social in general. But when something in the market happens that could potentially affect any one of those marketing channels, those brands see the impact of the marketing channel and their performance. So for us, is really trying to find out what are the new channels that we can expand and find our audiences. By default, everybody needs to sleep, right? And everybody that can benefit from a great mattress is our customer. So for us, is where do we find that? And usually, is in most marketing channels, just that we need to figure out what marketing channel works at the right budget. So one that we've been eyeing for a while and kind of dabbling there and doing small tests where there's connected TV. Last year, we did a small test on connected TV with Hulu, where we spent X amount of dollars for about 2 to 3 weeks and understood that our audience is there. We saw some small engagement there with our ads, based on Hulu's numbers and whatnot. But one thing that we pride ourselves is in having multiple checkpoints for any given marketing channel, so that we are not relying just on that marketing channel's number. So after seeing that we had some initial success with Hulu, we said, okay, well, we need to really figure out how to crack this channel. So we started doing some research and development on understanding who out there has the best measurement capabilities for this, right? Hulu has an attribution uh, model offering that they provide their customers when they reach a certain threshold of spend. And that is great because it allows us to give them data for them to run an incrementality test and let us know. That's a great tool to have, right? It gives us an insight into how valuable Hulu inventory is to our business. But for us, that is not sufficient. So for us, we want to also run our internal analysis and incrementality tests, et cetera, with our data because we know our customers the best. So we partner with a different company called MadHive, who has built their DSP from the ground up to focus on connected TV and OTT. And what I love about these guys is that they're fully transparent with us and all the data points that they can provide to us and allows us to take the data in-house and run our own analysis across our internal device graph and our internal attribution models that we set forth. So now we are very excited essentially to expand into connected TV after running some tests across different platforms, not just Hulu, talking about the trade desk, display and video 360, et cetera. And that is one of the channels that we're looking to scale up. An additional channel that we're kind of bringing back that is not necessarily new, but has changed over time is TV and linear TV for that matter. And that we want to look at TV more digitally, considering the fact that a lot has changed in the ecosystem of TV, right? Now you have all these different smart TV providers out there that are leveraging their data to make linear TV more addressable and more targetable so that you can actually measure the success without having to do too much of a probabilistic approach to TV, although a sample set of it, but it's still something better than nothing.
Right. Yeah, speaking of data, I mean, it's not TV, but all the stuff that's going on with the cookieless world and the IDFA going away from Apple, how does that impact? I know you guys have other channels outside of TV and CTV, so how's that impacting what you guys are looking at doing?
I would say that, and this is something that I heard kind of the previous presenter from Hulu about talked about. For us, our income and traffic to our site is pretty diverse and doesn't necessarily, come all from just Apple devices or Apple related devices. So on that front, we're good. But from a marketing mix perspective and understanding the performance of our marketing channels, on that front, I don't think it's going to impact us too much. It's simply for the fact that we've started building our own device graph internally that allows us to look at users coming into our website at the email level, as long as they provided consent and given us their email. And then for users that we are essentially not able to get their email, we are essentially modeling those users and using partners such as LiveRamp to essentially connect the dots. By using a partner like LiveRamp, it allows us to essentially not rely on a cookie ID. Instead, it allows us to rely on their IDL, which is a universal ID that is widely known in the industry and that a lot of other big companies are using because of the trust that they have in LiveRamp and the capability of handling sensitive data. So for us, that is something that we are a little concerned about, but we're more concerned about how the platforms are going to handle the shift versus how we are going to handle attribution. And what I mean by that is, how is Facebook, for example, going to handle that shift if users are no longer consenting? How is Google going to handle that shift, et cetera? And for that, we have a very close relationship with our Google and Facebook reps. So luckily for us, we're able to kind of sit in at the front line of how they are starting to think about some of these conversations. So honestly, I don't feel too worried for our marketing mix, but I think that other brands out there should start looking at alternative of how they are going to start connecting all of their consumer interactions and behavior across their different environment when it comes to Google and Apple moving to a cookieless world.
Yeah, so that leads to another question. You talked about Facebook and stuff. Now politics is getting involved in media channels, right? You TikTok and Facebook boycott and all that stuff. What do you guys look at from that perspective? I know it's hard to tell what's going to happen in the next month, 2 months, 3 months, but how do you guys look at your media mix and evaluate all these things?
Yeah, so I think from a political standpoint, it's interesting because now a lot of marketing channels are starting to become more politicized. I mean, Twitter was the first one that became very political with the involvement of, the president of the United States constantly tweeted on it and then other parties in between. So from a marketing standpoint, it's just not putting all your eggs in one basket, not relying on one single channel to drive your business forward. And that's why I think, and I believe that we're very prideful in that we have a very healthy marketing mix. We believe that our customers everywhere, right? We run from pay social to podcast to direct mail to TV to CTV, and pretty much everything in between, even USPS, direct mail, and other programs in between, because we want to make sure that when a particular channel is affected by some out of the norm factor like a political election or a pandemic, that we're not hit too hard. And for us, again, we are in a very unique position that our consumer or our customer is someone that needs to have a good night's sleep. And the product that we provide at the core of our company, which is a mattress, is suited for every single one of those customers that we can find in any one of these given channels. So for us is figuring out how to alter the message so that we're not caught up in the middle of the politics or the pandemic, et cetera. Because at the end of the day, what we're looking for is to provide a product that provides the best value and the best sleep for that customer, regardless of the platform. So one thing is, again, diversifying your marketing mix to make sure that you don't have all your eggs in one basket and relying solely on one marketing channel. And the other thing is altering your message to make sure that you're cautious of the language that you're using, considering some of these platforms and the backlog that some of these platforms might be experiencing, whether that is political or that is related to a pandemic.
So again, speaking of the pandemic, how has that changed things for you, and what nuggets are you going to take out of this? I think one day this thing's going to end, right? We're going to be back to normalcy, as they say. Yeah, so God willing. So what nuggets have you gleaned out of the past 3-4 months that'll guide what you guys do in the future?
Of course. So with the pandemic, I would say that it has kind of been a blessing in disguise for our business. And I think it's primarily because of the fact that more people obviously are at home and working from home. So they're starting to realize that a lot of their day-to-day essential products or pieces of furniture that are in the house that they typically don't think too much about, right? They have a routine, they get up in the morning, they get ready for work, they go on their commute, they go to work, they go on their commute to come back home, and they do everything in between, right? They don't really think about these products and how these products affect their body, their mind, and their well-being, etc. And I feel like as people are spending more time at home, they're realizing that their bedroom has one of the main products that they should be focusing on and improving. So for our business, it was actually a blessing in that we have seen the highest volume of sales that we've ever seen as a company, and it's been an extremely blessing for us. And we are very grateful of the customers that have chosen to go with one of our products over our competitors. So one thing that I definitely say has been a big learning is that, and something that we'll make sure to continue to focus on, is the focus on customer. Customers should be pretty much any brand's primary focus. And the reason why is because the new norm for what the new consumer is this consumer that is expecting convenience from the brands that they interact with, is expecting a great customer service, is expecting immediacy, right? They want their product now. And oftentimes there are things that are out of your control. And which leads me to the other point of learning from this pandemic is that as a business, you want to make sure that you do not that you have redundancies in your logistics, that you do not want to rely on one single service to essentially get your product to your customer. And the example that comes to mind is in our business, right? We're an e-commerce direct to consumer. One of the biggest services that we rely on is delivery carrier, right? So like FedEx, UPS, etc. And one thing that came out of the pandemic is understanding that we need to have redundancies in place for that. Because sometimes, although we might adapt ourselves as a business to the always evolving consumer, there are other services that we rely on that might not adapt so quickly. So FedEx, for example, there's been articles out there and information out there about how they were not expecting the high volume of online sales during this pandemic, and essentially they had a shortage of trucks that they couldn't get to different warehouses and whatnot. So a lot of brands were affected by FedEx having this issue. And that is one thing that moving forward, we now know that we can adapt and ensure that we have redundancies when we cannot rely on one logistics partner. For example, we can have three others as an alternative. So in short, I think the learnings have been number one, keep the customer in top mind. Let that be your focus and your North Star, because the customer will tell you their needs, will tell you their wants, will tell you all the feedback that you need for your business. And number two is ensuring that you have redundancies across the services that power your business, so that you don't have to depend on one single one, and that one single service affect your business in the long term or the short term, regardless of what's happening in the world.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. I know we talked earlier, and one of the things was reviews and you know how reviews impact business and things like that. How do you guys deal with that from a marketing perspective? I know it doesn't have to do with the media mix. Maybe it does. I don't know, but how do you guys look at that? And you know, there's always people that are never satisfied or whatever. But you know, how do you guys take the whole review model and all that stuff and take that into your marketing? How do you figure that out?
Yes, I mean, honestly, it's hard to get to every single customer, right? And future customers and potential customers. Um, so we honestly try to do our best from a marketing standpoint. You know, we have the channel managers. I mean, me, for example, I handle YouTube, and there's tons of potential customers or customers that are waiting for their orders that do comment on our videos. So I take it upon myself to kind of just go in there and respond to comments as I see them come in, you know, as much as I can. But we have a synergy between the marketing team and our customer service rep, where we have a communications team that goes out into the different platforms to try to answer as many reviews as possible and give the customer the answer that they're looking for, et cetera. But also we work with the marketing, the CS works with the marketing team to also alert each other, say, hey, look, you know, these are the posts that you're promoting that are driving the most reviews or comments on it, et cetera. And essentially on the marketing side, we kind of work to try to figure out how to mitigate that as much as possible and try to see if there's some correlation between, for example, on Facebook, people commenting too much on one of our promoted posts, how does that affect the performance of that post? You know, there goes to say there's, you know, good or bad publicity is still good publicity, but not all the time. So you have to figure out a way to mitigate this. And unfortunately, there's not one perfect answer other than you just have to do your best and ensure that the teams are communicating, right? If you have the marketing team kind of looking at the activity of the promoted posts or the channels that they're marketing, and these are channels that a customer can comment on, and then you have the CS also responding to these things, ensuring that they're on the same page. And it's just communication, unfortunately. There's no better way to put it other than just having good communication.
That's great. And good points there. So, you know, getting back to communication with the world as it is, and you know, not being in the office, and Val was talking about it earlier, with not having the cooler talk. How difficult has it been, or how have you guys transitioned to this world of being, you know, working remotely and connecting and having that communications and all that stuff?
So luckily for us, Resident was founded as a remote company first. So when we hire remote first. In the New York office, in the New York region, we did have a New York office, which unfortunately we haven't been there in the past 4 months. So we've been kind of mitigating those interactions by creating different Slack channels to ensure that everybody's communicating, but also having weekly events and weekly stand-up meetings. So we'll have our weekly CEO office hours, where we'll have our CEO kind of and we have two CEOs, make themselves available so that anybody can ask any questions that they have that are coming up throughout the week, but also so that the team can cross-share knowledge in these meetings. We also have our different brands weekly meetings led by their respective GMs that allow each team that works on a particular brand to come together and cross-share how the projects that they're doing are impacting other divisions of that particular brand, et cetera. But in all, it's just, again, back to the communication. You have to find ways to communicate with your team frequently, right? And if you are hiring remote first, you have to understand that trust is the number one thing. If you hire someone remote, you have to trust that person to do their job, right? So for us, there's no worry about, oh, is this person up in the morning at 9 a.m. with their laptop on, moving their mouse around and that kind of thing, right? We look more at the results of that hire to ensure that they're being productive. So the benefit of being remote is that, you get to kind of work around your personal life to achieve the goals of, your employer, but also your personal life. So for me, there's days where I start my days at 7 a.m. and end up at 5. There's days where I might start at 10 a.m. and end up my day at 7 a.m., right? I kind of adjust those things accordingly to my personal life and the goals that I have for that given day. But in short, we've been doing a lot of internal events to try to keep engagement up, as we always have, because we've been remote first from the prior to this pandemic.
Great. So I'm going to change gears just slightly. I saw, speaking of me, I saw a commercial about like Home Depot now has furniture, right? So how do you guys see competition? A lot of mattress companies, Purple, Casper, these guys were the D2C and digital native and grew from there. How do you see your world? How do you see the mattress furniture world, and where do you see your company going?
Yeah, so as far as competitors, the two biggest ones for us would be Casper and Purple. And honestly, it's hard to almost call them competitors just because we're so different in price point to a lot of our products. I mean, just comparing Nectar to Purple or Casper, the Nectar mattress is on average anywhere between $200 to almost $400 cheaper than any of those two put together. And then on top of that, our offering adds an additional added value to the consumer that lessens the worry of additional accessories that they need to buy for their bedroom. So it's a little hard to kind of put us side by side with them, but we do all sell one product that is common, which is the mattress. So as far as competitors go, we track their sentiment, we track our sentiment, we track how they're ranking in search, in particular generic search terms and whatnot. But what we've learned is that we can't put too much focus on competitors because sometimes what works for them doesn't necessarily mean that it works for us. So we do the typical stuff, right? We want to protect our brand new terms and whatnot on search. We want to make sure that we are in as many marketing channels as they are to protect our share of voice and whatnot. But I think that what differentiates us between them and us is our marketing team, our people. We take pride in that. And we take pride in the people that we hire and the experts that we hire for each marketing channel and how we look at things. We have experts in our companies from diverse backgrounds, from Google, from other big companies, and also people that have been in the mattress industry for years, right? We have a massive presence in the retail space that some of these competitors of ours might not even know about because we don't advertise it as much, right? We have partners, over 1,500 partners in the retail space that sell our products. But essentially, it's just a focus on how we can do what they're doing much better. And that ultimately boils down to the analytics and the measurement aspect of it, right? We don't focus too much on brand. We kind of let the branding aspect of our performance effort be the icing on the cake. And that is just essentially our North Star is every channel needs to drive performance and every channel works at the right cost to drive performance. And as far as all the other competitors that are coming out, right, you have Home Depot, you have Amazon coming out with their own mattresses. These are companies that are seeing the opportunity in the mattress space, but it's easy to go and find a supplier and get a mattress. It's extremely hard to dial in the marketing channel to the point that you have such control of that marketing channel to adjust your spend accordingly to predict the actual cost per transaction or cost per X that you're likely to get out of it. And that's something that we feel we've perfected over the lifetime of our brands, and something that I don't feel any one of our competitor has dialed in yet, with the exception of Purple, if any one of them at all, just because I feel like Purple is also very performance driven, although they do a lot of branding. But they are one that, they've done a good job at putting in a brand image out there. And by doing it completely different than any other of the competitors, right? Their approach was, let's do this with a video first approach, right? They took and said, let's build the best relatable video out there that our consumer will remember. And they did. And they kind of took the market by surprise, got a big share of voice, etc. For us, it was different. For us, it's like, okay, we want to tackle the market by coming in with the best product at the best value. That is price point. And I feel like we've done a fantastic job at maintaining to that value of providing the customer with the best value, the best lead for the best value. So again, the competitor question is interesting just because for us, we look at our competitor on a day-to-day more of to just to understand how they're doing versus how do we compare ourselves to them. But yeah.
That's great. So one of the things you talked about was your teams and how your teams are structured and everything. How do you guys go and look for that talent, right? So a lot of it has to do with the talent. Is there certain skill sets you look for, and what do you look for from somebody on your team that ties into how you do your marketing and your media?
Yeah, so I think the biggest advantage to being remote is that you don't limit your talent pool to your specific geos. And I think that is the very first thing about how we go out there and look for talent versus some of our competitors that might have headquarters in New York or headquarters in the West Coast, et cetera, is that we're not limited to just the US, right? We can go anywhere in the world to find the talent that will suit the need that we have at the moment, right? So that would be the first thing, is ensuring that we can find the best remote person. And then the next thing is, do we need a generalist or do we need a specialist in a particular marketing channel or job function? And that's how we end up narrowing it down, right? I can tell you right now that all the way from our CS rep to our CEO, right? Everybody knows the market funnel. And that is one thing that we pride is like on our I guess requirements. It's like we need someone that can fully understand every step of the way, right? That is not shy to just their job function, but is open to learning and understanding other functions of the business. So in a way, we do look for a generalist that do specialize in a particular marketing channel that we're looking for or a particular job function. But we want to ensure that that person is, again, comfortable working remote and trustworthy, but also it's open to learning the full marketing funnel, the full journey that a user takes to becoming a Nectar, a Dream Cloud, any one of our brands customer. And I think that is important. And that is one thing that I feel sometimes lacks from some of our competitors as well as other industries that, right, they restrict themselves to just the traditional hiring, which is, okay, we have an office, we want someone in the office at all times, and we want someone to do the specific job function. And when you do that, I feel like you limit that person's ability to figure out how they can add additional value across other functions. We've had people internally that have been promoted from being a CS to a product manager. And just simply because of the fact that we allow that person from starting in a CS role to be exposed to these other functions in the company that we then found out, oh, wow, they're actually a product person at heart and ended up becoming a product manager. So that is why it's important to not just limit your criteria to just one job function, but figure out a way to to position the messaging as someone that is also that could potentially become a generalist that you can potentially use across different functions.
That's great. So my last question before we get to questions from the audience. You said this during this last couple of months has been great for you guys with your business. I talked to a lot of people that are in the retail space that have been struggling during this time. So how has technology helped you guys, right? So you guys are at the forefront of tech. So aside from media mix, how has tech helped you gain that advantage over some of your competitors that are struggling?
So you mentioned the retail piece, something that I briefly want to touch on because, like I said, we do have a lot of retail partners and we have a phenomenal retail team, right? And one thing that we are doing to improve our partnerships with our retail partners is assisting them through this period of time, right? Where we are creating programs for our retail partners to ensure that they're not seeing too much of an impact of this pandemic, and building tools from the ground up to essentially allow them to still get traffic from our brands into their physical store, right? There's some retail brand partners that are starting to open up. So one thing that we've done is essentially build an appointment scheduler from the ground up and connect it the pipelines between us and our retail partners to essentially allow the traffic that's coming into our site and across our different brands to have the option that if they choose to, they can go into a physical store to try out the mattress by way of scheduling an appointment and whatnot. Other things that we've done is with a lot of these retail partners is kind of provide them guidance on the marketing side, right? A lot of them have had to stop doing marketing because of COVID, while others, were brave enough to still maintain spending. So providing our marketing expertise, cross-sharing knowledge and whatnot, so that they don't feel like they're alone in navigating the waters of COVID. And because we're getting all these learnings for the success that we're seeing of the pandemic, it's easy for us to kind of cross-share that. But on the technology front, one thing that is helping with all of this, again, is our partnerships with companies like LiveRamp or PlaceIQ, and some of the other technology partners, or even some of the marketing channels like MadHive, that allows us to get additional data points for us to understand performance and behaviors better, right? Sometimes we use a vendor, not just for the marketing aspect of it, but also to learn from their signals that they're collecting how our consumer is behaving across the journey or across the current state of the world right now. And that's been kind of one of the ways that we've been leveraging the technology that we have access is to tie and cross-reference all the different points, right? From Google and their technology stack, we closely monitor search trend behaviors to try to understand the demand of the ecosystem. From Facebook, we monitor kind of the interest and the engagement on the platform to see how the consumer is engaging with our brands, but also with the overall category. And then tie it up with kind of viewership data from our partners from connected TV and TV to try to understand, how is the consumer behavior in that front. And then we start stitching everything together. You start getting a holistic view of the consumer and how their overall behavior is changing and fluctuating. And that helps you inform kind of your marketing on when do you want to spend more, when do you want to bring down your spend, or how you might want to adjust your messaging for a particular marketing channel or all your marketing channels for that matter. But yeah, hopefully that answers the question.
It does. Thank you. Opening up to questions. Anybody sending in questions? All right. I think we answered everything.
That's good to hear.
Yeah. Let's see. All right. So I think we covered everything.
Hi,
So we're going to
guys.
bring Lauren back in. Hi.
Hey.
So, yeah. Junior
Thank
took
you
care
so
of
much for
every
joining the
question.
conversation.
No problem. Thank you so much for having us. Appreciate it.
Mhm.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes,
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. Sorry, technical
All right.
difficulties. You know
No
how it
problem.
is. Yeah.
Yeah,
No problem.
no problem.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope you both come back soon. I think you're both scheduled to be back again in the near future. So, yeah.
Think so. Think so. Yeah, I'll have to have a whole new batch of questions for Junior. He took care of everything. Like,
Thank you
spot
so
on.
much.
Awesome.
Appreciate you guys having me.
Yes.
Well, to the next one, and I hope you all have a wonderful day and good rest of your week.
You
You
too.
too.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Hamid.
Thanks.
Yeah, and thanks to everyone who tuned in today. We're so glad to have you. Please feel free to join us. We'll be back in action on Thursday with a whole slate of programming on content and creative. Wonderful speakers from CBRE, Gensler, Marriott, and then have a great Labor Day weekend. And we'll be back next week with some fantastic sessions featuring Coca-Cola and Pepsi and all sorts of other brands. So we hope that you'll join us. Have a great night.